good, but maybe it's. This is really a good week for me.
Alright,
it's 5 o'clock, please stand and join me in the pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, welcome to our work session here today. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about, Amanda is at the ball game. She'll be here at some point, but she wants us to talk about our board retreat. She gave us all some dates. So we just need to pick one. She's done it, it's the February 15th, I guess 15th not gonna work, is it? Okay, so the 24th, 26th, March 3rd, or March 4th. I am not in town on the 3rd and 4th. Oh, yes, I am. No, I'm not. That's state wrestling.
What time? When she sent that out, she put no time on it.
I think it was gonna be the evening, it'd be like 6 to 9 or something like that. It was gonna be a function thing with the meal.
24th's fine with me, I don't have a jury trial, I mean, but if you wait for my schedule, you'll never get a date set.
The 24th would be a week from today. And the 26th would be a week from Wednesday. And then of course March, oh, wait a minute, 3rd and 4th. I am not here for those days. Sean, you said the 4th was best for you?
Yes.
What's the 4th? I'll get the calendar.
The 4th is on a Tuesday. And Clay, you could make,
I'm good
Any
with
of them?
that, yeah.
we'll narrow it down to the 24th or the 4th. And Diana, you're not available?
Right, we're out of town for 3 weeks, leaving tomorrow morning.
Good for you.
We're living this Snowden pile.
Yeah.
Okay,
4th's fine too, whatever.
okay, can we just call it March 4th?
Sounds good.
What time did you say, 6?
It'll be 6 p.m. If it's different, we'll let you know. All right, thank you, Texas. All right, next. Oh, okay, so those are here in the future topics for retreats as well. So on that, if there's items that you guys want us to be talking about and thinking about, that's what we're gonna talk about at the, or anything that you want us, like I wanna bring up some of the stuff that we had at the state school board association with the legal stuff at this first meeting. Like the Facebook and stuff was really interesting, so we need to bring some of that up. So please let Amanda know if you have specific topics you wanna be done at the retreats that goes along with our board evaluation. We do that quarterly by policy. Anything else on those about the board retreats? Alright. Next, the cell phone committee. I'm gonna turn this over to Diane.
Okay, we did have one meeting February 5th at 4 p.m. and Sean Hoffman, Doug Weaver and myself, the committee met and came up right off the top of our head, because we gotta have a starting place, the following recommendations. First of all, note that if this gets voted into policy, it will take effect in the 25-26 school year. I said, we feel there should be no cellular devices at all. And we didn't specify what those are, but we all know anything that can access the internet. For K-5, in the K-5 age group, no cellular devices at all. And if found, it would be held in the office until a parent or guardian picks it up. Our recommendations for grades 6 through 8 that the devices need to be turned off upon entering the school and left in a backpack. Or do they have lockers in there? Or lockers. They cannot be on the person anytime during the school hours. And in high school, it would be the same, turn it off upon entering the school and left in a backpack, except they can access their phone during lunch period, whether they are on or off campus. And then there was discussion on consequences. Again, this is all preliminary for those that are just coming in. This is just our preliminary discussion on what we feel would be good guidelines for cellular devices in our school. The first offense would be a verbal warning. The second would be to confiscate the phone and send the device to the office to be picked up by the student at the end of that school day. The third offense would be to do the same, device to the office to be picked up by parent or guardian at the end of the school day. Fourth offense, device be held in office for a 5-day period. So that's where we thought would be a good starting point. I'm hoping that we can have more discussion here and then get a plan on who, we want input from the people, from our staff, and everyone that it's going to affect most next, the ones here in school. And so we're looking for recommendations on what our next steps would be as we are developing this, because we really want to get input.
And maybe I didn't catch it, but we also discussed that if a teacher was actually teaching a class, they couldn't access their cell phone either. You can't have the students banned from their cell phones and at the same time teachers texting or doing whatever. If it's a classroom time and they have a class in there, they don't get to use their cell phones either. And so if they have a free period and they're not teaching, that's fine, but I think that's important to show that the students that listen, it's like at the dinner table. I don't get to use my cell phone and tell my kids that they can't use their cell phone. You gotta make sure that it's consistent, so. That would be one thing I would ask that it be put in that policy.
So I'll play the devil's advocate here. Do we have a legal leg to stand on telling them they can't have their phone anywhere near them? Because I see a parent or parents that will, or have, let me rephrase that I've known of, that have come uncorked about such things. So I'm not opposed to having this policy, IIBH. So because we have this policy, does that mean we rework the existing policy? And revise it more or less? I mean, we're revising a lot of other policies at the moment.
Right.
But because we already have the foundation right here, does that just mean we're gonna go in and tweak it and say, here's the rules of which we will abide by with policy IIBH?
Yeah, I think we need to back up just a little bit
Right.
and say why we're even talking about this. A couple of reasons, it's a big topic for a lot of people. And the state the legislature was looking at this, I don't think it came out of committee, but I don't know for sure.
It died.
It did,
Okay,
So it is up to us.
Yeah, so it is, we do have a policy, it is IIBH. So the talk was to form a committee to explore some of the things, if we need to revamp this policy, and if so, how to revamp it, if needed. So did I see a hand out here?
Yeah, I had a question for you. So it sounds great, and I find kids constantly with cell phones and smartwatches, but I don't think you can limit the teachers from having their cell phones, because I've got multiple labs where I have no access to a phone, and it's a high risk situation. So my shop, the welding trailer here, so I think it's a great idea, but you take that away from the teachers, there's a lot of times that we're not sitting in a classroom where I'll send a call to the office. if I need help or if we have a lockdown situation, things like that.
So that's the information that we need to,
Right.
you know.
And I think that you're saying more than not having it, it's not using it.
If you have to use it for an emergency, nobody would.
I get it, but you can't gray area that. It's gotta be, when the parent says, why do you have your phone, you gotta be able to say, cause I have access to it. Not when someone's around, I can't check my email. And we're a Google school. Half of my Google stuff's on my phone. I'm gonna pack that around instead of a laptop, you know? And I think that's where you're splitting hairs. You can't have gray area, or they'll bite you.
Agreed, so that's good information to have when,
I had two different questions. One is, how are you gonna support teachers enforcing this? Just like Kevin is saying, they are fighting this even now, all the time, trying to make it to where kids aren't on their phones during the day. And then how are you gonna address to a parent that you're taking their kid's phone that they pay for 5 days? I mean,
Wouldn't
there are
bother
gonna
me
be
that.
questions that are gonna be put out there, so how are you gonna address that?
That's a good point, Shannon, and that's why I brought that up, because I know in the past that was a hot topic with several individuals.
This time of year, you have kids out on the roads that are dicey, and you have a kid who's had a phone taken away from them and they can't call for help. They get stuck in a snowbank, they get stuck off the side of the road. You've taken their phone. I get it's a privilege, but it's not a privilege to a certain extent because it's all we have anymore, you know? So just some of those logistics you need to think about when it comes to that kid safety outside the school day too.
well, I think that's when Diane said we need to figure out who all we need to be talking to and gather the more information. I think that's,
Yeah, and we've had some conversations, and I know that there are some teachers who have utilized, you know, they have successfully, I think, been able to say no cell phones except for now because we're gonna be using it, you know, for this purpose. And there are some reasons, not a lot of reasons, but there are some reasons why it can be helpful. Yeah, you know, I think that there's in high school especially, there's a place for that. I saw another hand.
Yes. Is there any other disciplinary function that you can do that would, you know, say strike one, strike two, strike three, you are expelled? I mean, there's gotta be a ground in there that says, yeah, you can have your lovely phone, I don't care. But you can go be expelled because you've violated rules that have been set in the school. You know, like you say, it's a privilege. And to go, your privilege has been revoked, even the school. It's a function of, are you here to be educated or here to play with the phone?
Well, I think the input that I've received from educators at the high school level, you know, and I'll just say it, you know, in order for your kids to get the quality education that you expect and require, it will take some cooperation from parents also helping to enforce the rules. And nobody wants to hear that, but the reality is that it's very frustrating for an educator to tell the same student over and over and over again to put their phone in their backpack or in the cubby, and they're being disobedient. So I think that it's gonna take a community effort, but it is very distracting and it's not fair to that educator. And it's not fair to the other students, and really, they're depriving themselves of their educational process for that day. So I just wanted to put that out there, because, you know, we can't be the strong arm of the law, but at the same time, a little common sense would be, you know, greatly appreciated, right?
Yeah. And it is necessary, it's sobering how it is affecting education, you know, and I've been in classrooms where, you know, kind of been in the back, and it's been an eye opener. It's very much, you know, you have the facts, Josh, on how many messages every hour they receive. So,
Yeah, they're receiving a lot of notifications. I mean, if you just look at our phones as adults and how many notifications we receive in an hour, kids are getting much, much more than that. I guess as far as the offenses go, this pretty much follows what we currently do now. This gives an extra verbal warning at the beginning But right now, the third consequence and consequences following that one, we give ISS because at that point it's basically insubordination to the teacher and or the principal. But it is gonna take everybody to do this because I mean kids are pretty bold right now and they'll just say, no, you can't have my phone. Okay, well then we're gonna come down to the office and have a chat about that and work through this, which we do, and parents are good about, I mean, they'll come in and pick up their phones. I'm concerned about the 5 days, that, I don't know if I can, I'm gonna have parents in my office, you know, demanding phones back, and I don't know if I can legally keep it.
Right.
So that concerns me a little bit. You know, some of the successful schools so far this year that have implemented it, I know Sheridan High School implemented a policy. And some of the concerns from the parents were like, what if there is an emergency? Kids need to be, you know, we want our kids to be able to have their access to their phones. And so they've had pretty good success. You know, it took a couple weeks to get used to it, but phones, AirPods, headphones, smartwatches are all in your bag. You can have them with you, but they're in your bag. So I guess that's kind of the approach that I would like to take. I'm not trying to take it away from you, but there's definitely some time where you need to be paying attention to your teacher. And I think that's the big thing. Take your AirPods out, you know, full attention on the instruction that is happening. You know, for the most part, at the high school level, you're talking, I mean, unless somebody's giving a long lecture, you're probably talking 15-20 minutes of lecture and or practice problems, and then students are getting a chance to work. But even that's where those distractions come in. They're not getting work done. You know, we're having issues with students turning in homework or using their time wisely. So those are all just expectations that we need to put out there and say, hey, this is what we're doing. But in case of an emergency, you still have access to your phone.
Okay, like your situation.
Yeah, kinda on that too, and I get why we're trying to do this, but there's a workaround for everything. We don't allow phones at the middle school, but they either email each other or they get one Google Doc and they share it to the whole class and they just talk all sorts of trash all day long on that. Games are a huge thing. There are 1,000 games that we can't block. And basically, if you're not sitting there staring at Aristotle, you're not gonna catch it. So, I mean, I see the purpose of this, but the workaround's already there. So, I mean, it's good to have some teeth in it, but, I mean, it's, the kid that doesn't wanna work is gonna find a way not to work.
So do we have surveillance cameras in each of our classrooms or?
I don't think they're in the classes.
In the shops.
But not-
More common areas.
Common areas.
Because they're not that expensive too, you know, I know. Yeah, I mean, it would take a full-time, I think it would take a full-time employee to enforce it. I just, especially where we've already had a policy that maybe wasn't fully enforced, you know, and I'm not dissing anyone's efforts, I know it's huge and a lot of resistance, you know.
Well, I think the question now is, as you said, where do you go from here? What kind of, who all do you want on the committee to go forward? Is that?
I think we definitely need to have some faculty, you know, our teachers need to have input on this.
I guess what crossed my mind is when are they already meeting? You know, to do another meeting just for this is fine and I'm willing to do that. But I'm also willing, and maybe we can also be willing to go where they're at. Already having a meeting, you know, like the weekly meeting or something, and we could maybe make it a topic that way. I was gonna see what John thought about that.
And we have a policy committee, right?
Mhm.
We could run it through our policy committee. And we have access to other school policies and what they've put in place, and like Josh was saying, districts who have put this in place just recently said they were surprised that they did have a lot of parent support. They didn't have a lot of issues with discipline.
If you start the school year off and say, this is the rules, we're gonna enforce it, you do that right away, kids get used to leaving it on their backpack, right? Or whatever the rule is, with their phones, they might have other workarounds with their Chromebooks, but remember, this was always a debate because before the pandemic, most schools didn't have devices for all their kids. Now we do, so they don't need it to log in, they don't need it to find information. So that debate went away, and I think most parents appreciated if kids were focused on their learning and not texting or listening to music and all those other things.
I talked to a parent, and not in this district, in fact, it was in Douglas, and he indicated that both parents and teachers with their policy, I think they have a ban on no, they're in their backpacks too. And the teachers and the parents both said it was liberating. All of a sudden, the policy was set down, this is the rule, we started off that way, in your backpack, no AirPods, nothing, just, they started, and I think the parents learned pretty quickly that it isn't such a bad idea. I think there's some, well, I wanna get a hold of them, well, there's a way to get a hold of them if you have to get a hold of them, but you don't need to text them 20 times a day and say, where are you? Well, you're supposed to be in school.
I agree with John on this, it needs to go to the policy committees. I mean, this policy went into effect January 2nd, 2013. A lot's changed in 12 years. I mean, I look at the policy and it mentions MP3 players. I haven't seen an MP3 player in 10 years, but that's just me. I have everything right here on this little device in my hand, like that's where we've gone to, so I think it should be a policy committee thing, and then if we wanna send whoever was on the committee, if you guys wanna join into that policy review, and we work through this with the policy committee to make this better than what it is. We have a guideline here, let's use it. Let's add some stuff to it, let's take some stuff out of it, and let's make this policy better, but I don't see a reason to reinvent the wheel on it.
Yeah, and I think more than anything, just really make it a point to communicate with our parents that this is going to be enforced. You know, there's a difference this year. And I think because we do have a policy that we're gonna have to make a point, but I still feel like we need more input before.
And remember, this will be like for evaluation first, and you'll have a reading and a second reading, with public comment. And anytime you pass a policy, you do get comments from the public, even if it's an action item, so there's ways to do that for sure.
Once it's reviewed by the policy committee, we can bring it back at a workshop.
I guess I'm most
Advertise it.
I'm most concerned about the ones that are gonna have to deal with enforcing it. Because I hope it will be a glide. I think it's gonna be a big pushback. And I think it's going to take a lot of energy, and those are the ones that I want to get feedback from. And ideas on that, and ultimately, you know, you're over the head, so, yeah. So, go to policy committee and
Back for more discussion, workshops, more info to come. Okay, now we will move to item C on our workshop, which is the 4-day week at Glendo. Actually, I should ask, did anybody else have anything on the cell phone? Sorry, it's a workshop, I need to.
And the board does have comments from the survey, I give everybody a copy of that, did you guys see that? Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I'm gonna say comments first, and then we can maybe hear from Tom to wrap us up.
Tom, would you like to address the 4-day work week or in Glenda or?
Just what I sent you guys.
Okay.
Just so everyone knows, I am mostly dead right now, so I'm slightly alive.
Get you up front.
So, can you guys catch it? You know where you got it from. Oh, great. So the board had asked to look at the Fast Bridge, and so what I did is I took every Fast Bridge, every student that took a test last year during the winter, I took those same students and looked at their scores from last year to this year. Basically, it came out even with growth. It was about 50-50. There was, inside the data, there was nothing that said one was better than the other. There's positive growth and some non-growth in there, both in the 5-day and the 4-day. That information that I gave you guys all the way down at the bottom, it shows in the math and in the ELA. The clear down at the bottom, it says like 7 pause or 7 neg. That's just, there was 14 kids that took tests last year and this year, the same tests. Now we have more students there this year, but they didn't test last year, so I couldn't really do a exact 5-day student testing versus 4-day student testing, so I just took the ones that took both. I did write down today just some other notes this year. So I looked at all the students that took the winter test just this year, and I did that this morning. And so there was 57 total tests taken. Now some kids take 2, some kids take 3, depends on your grade level and your age. So I looked at the 57 tests. 72% of the students were either low risk or above grade level, which is where we kind of want them. So that was 41 out of the 57 tests were either at low risk or above grade level. 14 were at some risk, that's 8 out of 57, and then 8 tests out of 57 were at high risk. Like I said, some of the students take 3, some of them take 2, just depends on the test and the student's age. That was ELA. In math, there was 44 tests taken. That was 41 out of 44 of the tests taken were either low risk or above grade level. So 3% were at some risk and 4% were at a high risk. So that's a lot of green and blue scores. And that's just from the winter. And you have to remember that when we take these tests, it's a 1-day snapshot of one student for 30 minutes throughout an entire school year. I mean, if their dog died last night, they're probably not gonna test well. If they had a great breakfast that morning, they're probably gonna test. I mean, there's so many things that affect these, so just remember, it's, when I look at all testing data, I look at it as a snapshot of how that kid did that day.
So Tom, overall, so people understand grading, remember, high performing or at grade level, the majority, if you took that data compared to your school, did you see less kids being successful in your school compared to Glendale overall?
72%, I think, I didn't look at that, but I wanted to say like the Wyoming average is in the 50s.
So pretty
Or
high
lower.
performing or
That's
grade level.
very high performing, yeah, 72, I would take 72% at West all day long.
Okay, just so people know, just so they kind of know that,
And I think,
core
I
students.
think Mr. Schaffner would take it at Libby, and I think Mr. Sandlin would take it at the high school, and I think Robert would take it at the middle school.
Okay,
And then the other thing I sent, so that you have the ELA comparative data, you have the math comparative data. The survey results are pretty self-explanatory. It was a really quick, easy survey. And I put in it shows how many respondents there were. And it looks, I did break it up so you guys could see how many staff members took it versus how many parents and guardians, and then I also took out the staff member data. I think I sent you guys that in the email of what it looks like in the staff member. If you take the staff out, it still came back that 75% think the 4 days good for next year, opposed to, well, 76 opposed to 24.
Is everybody, Tom, or is that parents or staff combined?
That is everybody combined.
Okay.
And then in the email I sent you guys, what it looked like when you took the staff out. And I don't have that right here. I think it still came out like 70 or 68% for the 4-day. I sent you guys so many emails in a row that I don't have that one. Oh.
Alright, do we have any parents that wanna speak?
Or teachers
Or
or?
anybody in the audience, you're more than welcome. Go ahead.
I'd like to. So off the percentage deal, I don't know where those came from or whatnot. My daughter goes to Glendale. I didn't do any kind of deal to get into that. This is I heard about this meeting, so I wanted to come here and just say that she's, even in school, she's doing really, really good. She is at a basketball game. She was actually hoping to be here to speak as well. She loves school, which is awesome. Glendale's her favorite school. And she made me promise I'd never go anywhere and move so she could attend and graduate from Glendale. And she likes the 4-day because she's still getting an education. She's not missing out on any activities, sports-wise, extracurricular, or anything. And at the same time, with the education that she's getting there, she gets to spend more time with me because it's just me and her. I mean, that's it. So we get to spend a little more time together, and I love that. I wouldn't trade that for 5 days for nothing. And there's a lot of times where I don't need help moving cows or something like that. But that 1 day a week extra that I get with her and she gets with me, so the education she gets there, and then she gets to go with me and then get a whole different side of an education as well. I mean, that's kind of hard to replace, if you want my opinion. So since I'm not on that, that's my 2 cents worth. I hope I am now. So, thank you.
Thank you.
I just, as a teacher side, for math wise, so we go the 35 minutes extra a day. So in those 4 days, that accumulates to 2 hours and 10 minutes. So I have, in the week, I have those 2 hours and 10 minutes, and I calculated roughly on Fridays, it's a 8 to 1 early release. So there's really only 5 hours in that school day. And you have to take away lunch and some specials and recesses at my grade level, right? Maybe not middle school, but they get about 3 hours of instruction time. I have 2 hours and 10 minutes extra in my other days, so I don't feel like I'm missing any of that time with them instructional wise. Actually, I'm able to not make Fridays a makeup day and get through everything I need to get through in those lessons that day. Like the 30 extra minutes has been actually huge for me with 3 grades, which is very hard in itself to teach 3 grades at kinder to 2nd graders. Their vast differences is just, it's really hard in itself. So for these kids to be learning in an environment where they're also having to manage themselves with 3 grades, I think they're doing a really good job. But I just think that, you know, I don't feel like they're missing out academically with that time. That's just my 2 cents.
Thank
you. Somewhat on that note, if my son was here without any coaching from me, I wanted you to hear what he would have to say. So I'll just tell you what I'm not gonna say it's the first thing he said about the 4-day week after they started, but it's the first thing that sticks in my mind. He said, it's really great. We have longer class periods. We actually get to get into it and feel like we got something done, instead of barely getting started and the bell rings and we go to the next class. I thought that was pretty good for a 7th grader to think he was able to learn more because of a longer class period. From the parenting standpoint, are there some Thursday nights when the kids are white, they're done with school because they've been going hard for 4 days? Oh yeah, there is. But I tell you what, every single weekend with that extra day off, they are refreshed and ready to hit it again on Monday.
definitely wouldn't wanna trade that for anything there. That extra day on the weekend is huge for those kids to be ready to go again on Monday.
I'll go. Mine can't really be addressed until we talk about the staffing of the high school. So if we staff the high school, we have to add another 50 hours, right, to our school year to meet the high school requirements for hours, correct, Tom?
35.
35 hours. So are we gonna have longer days still, or are we gonna have more days? Like a longer school year or more time per day?
Neither,
What are we gonna do?
because right now the elementary has a longer lunch and multiple recesses, so we
Okay.
have to pull those out, right? Because they only count minutes in class, so the only thing we'd have to change is the lunch time
Okay.
for the high school student, which because high schoolers don't go to recess.
Right.
Which someone reminded me of that, was that you? Cause I was thinking same thing, what are we gonna have to do, extend this, extend this, extend this, it might have been, was that you? Oh, it was,
I think Shane and I were.
someone
Insight.
reminded me that high schoolers do not do recess. So basically it just I think I put it a 40 or a 45-minute lunch, and that would meet the standard for the state.
Okay.
So,
So no Fridays,
no Fridays,
no,
no, the only people that
Extended
have to
it?
work on Fridays are the teachers if we have a work day, staff day. But yeah, it'd be, I wanna say it was 45 minutes, I'd have to go back and,
I've got it right. Still a 45-minute lunch to high school,
Yeah,
well over
which
the
is-
minimum
that's a-
1,000 hours.
does that put it at 1,003, something like that?
1,036. Glendale High School will be at 10:36.
Yeah, cause you have 40 minutes, right? So. Which in Glendale, they don't run the same thing in the chicken tenders and mac and cheese.
God, they don't. You just need a longer lunch.
They eat 12 minutes anyway, so.
Yeah, but that would also give, when I was thinking about that, even at the high school level, it's, you get a 40-45 minute lunch. That's some good relaxed time where you can just like, I'm done, let me chill for a little bit.
Get your phone out.
Get your phone out, earbuds.
We'll see about that.
I guess that does bring in, we were talking about the staffing of the high school, because we know we have at least one student up there. But we kind of have to talk about staffing that before we can look for staff and see how it's gonna go, so it's kind of a conglomeration of how we have to just get the ball rolling, so to speak, on staffing the high school. Any comments on that?
I can just show you, we do have one 8th grader, there'll be a 9th grader, so if we try to provide something, we have to have staff in for that student. And then below that grade, we have 5 students and 5 students, so there's a possibility to have 11 in 3 years at the high school level. If we don't staff it, then when we hear these maybe homeschool students, or maybe students who have moved to Glendale, maybe they're going to Douglas, maybe they're doing something different, if we don't have it staffed, they don't have a place to go.
Right.
So it's kind of hard if we don't have that availability to start to grow those programs. But before we can do any staffing, we need approval from the board to move forward.
So that just means like to look into the possibilities of staffing for Glendale. And then like, you've always said that Glendale gets to be creative with their, I mean, we have guidelines, but we definitely get to be creative with who we have where and how we can kind of manipulate to be best for kids. Is that like a discussion that the teachers, the staff there could have a discussion on what it would look like, or what is like?
I can tell you a little bit, Tom and I talked a little bit, so you have a couple options. Some of it's gonna be virtual, because you wouldn't be able to hire 4 content
Right,
teachers,
right.
right? Everybody kind of understands that. So it'd either be maybe a paraprofessional who helps supervise, or a content level teacher. Maybe you hire a math teacher who teaches math face to face, but they can help at the junior high level, could help other places, or maybe they feel comfortable enough, they could actually get certified in maybe another content and do that face to face. So we kind of blend that together with the upper level kids and our junior, middle level kids. You would probably add that staff to your schedule, and you guys could figure that out, what
So
works best.
This would be a position on top of our already middle school person.
I would think because the middle school's grown, it's been kind of difficult, I think, because we're growing with the number of students and trying to teach all those content areas. And we all know face-to-face is better, but we can't have the whole,
So then
core subject. So
ideally,
ideally, you'd probably hire either a paraprofessional or a certified teacher in one of those core content areas that would teach that face-to-face. So if they weren't in social studies, then Charles would maybe do some and this person would do some also at the junior high, but they would be monitoring the high school.
so
That's just
just
a couple options.
just as an example, if we hired a math teacher, that math teacher could do middle school math and the high school level math, and Charles would be monitoring whatever
You
else,
could
and
switch back and
Charles
forth.
could do English for them, so then they really only have to have 2 online classes, cause they're meeting English and.
2 online core classes, that's an example, yeah. And then the program we're looking at actually has certified Wyoming teachers on the other end of that, so they could do tutoring, we could pay for that. They would actually give the grade that would be certified in Wyoming. They could do parent-teacher conferences, it would be through Zoom, but there's other ways, it's grown a little bit over time, what access you have. So you have a certified person. Let's say we hired an English person and the math content gets a little difficult as you get into high school, they could have tutoring weekly with a certified math person on the other end of the program.
And does the school have to pay for that?
Yes, per license, that's how it kind of works, or more support it does cost.
And it's per license per kid?
That's how some of them work, or you can do a group of licenses, it kind of depends, they work with you on that, so.
At one point, didn't you say if we had 1 high school students, we were funded for 1 teacher and half a principal, was that correct?
So we were checking on that, I asked Jamie to check on that just a little bit and see where we're at, since we're not staffing it. The last time it was staffed, I believe it was 3 years ago, and we had 3 high school students. So we're checking to see, at the state level, we haven't found that answer out yet.
Okay.
Does that help with our average, when it comes back to the school? If it's not staffed, they're probably not giving us money for that school, right? So we're trying to figure out where we're at. If we have to, we would have to have upfront the cost of the staffing, then the next year it would count towards ADM and the school would get that. And remember, we have a block grant, so we decide how we use our funds across the district.
Right.
There's other, like we add a special ed teacher somewhere, we don't get reimbursed that year, we have to wait a year. So it's not that uncommon how you get funded from the state. But we need to do a little check-in on that for sure.
Funding would have been my question, is how does that work, but you pretty well answered that.
Yeah, I mean,
that's the ugly caveat of this is, where do we say that we can make that happen? Or on the flip side of that is what gets cut to make it happen? Because we are in a finite amount, there's a finite amount of everything, so how do we make it balance out? And don't take that as I don't want a high school in Glendo, okay, it's not where I'm going with this. I just wanna know, how do we make it work?
so I think you always look at priorities, what's the district's priority? And how can you be efficient and effective across the board, right? So as a system, I think we can get this done financially. But you have to, like I said, if we have a low number of students, that section would go away, we don't have a teacher for that one section, we did this last year in 2nd grade. So those are the tougher decisions, but you have to make those across the board, so you have a little more flexibility with your budget.
And I can see just speaking from where we're at with Glendo, I can see adding another teacher being very beneficial to the rest of the grade levels. Especially if we can split that time up and give a little bit more to each set somehow. That means Frankie's teaching a little more of social studies at a lower level, whatever that may be, because I know that was some of the feedback we got, or I've received, was, we don't have very many enrichments that we used to have in Glendo. And that was something that was brought up, was how do we get some of that back? Can we get some of it back? And the Friday things that was another topic of, is there a way to add 2 hours on a Friday for kids to get some help getting caught up on something if they haven't caught up on it? I don't know what those answers are. I don't know, does that mean, do we have a para for 2 hours on some Fridays that do something to help some kids get caught up? I have no idea. But that was concerns that were brought up to me in conversations with some parents, was what can we do for even a minute little bit of time on every Friday to give them something so that here you go. Maybe that is an hour of an intervention that helps a kid finally get that last little piece to read better. I don't know. but is that an option? Can we find a way to make that work so that those parents that have those concerns on Fridays can get that assistance if that's what they're looking for the kids?
So as a district in a whole, these kids are worth a whole lot more. The Will Beckers and the Levi Foxes are worth a whole lot more in Glendale, right, than they are in Wheatland, correct? Small school funding,
So you have different ratios.
right,
That you get funded for, so
Right.
you get more staff that goes into, kind of by school, but it's still block granted across the
right, of
district.
course it is.
And that's not why they're there.
No, I know, but I'm getting at more kids. Can we get more kids from Wheatland that would benefit from it? Not just going around and being like, hey, you wanna go to Glendale? We have cookies, but like, hey, I see that you would benefit from Brooks' class.
And I think we said that's a school of choice for some students,
Right.
that maybe Glendale's a better option for them,
Right.
and we help transport that, I think that's a good option for our
But
district.
couldn't we identify them somehow and give them, like the parents that might not know completely that this is an option and it's safe and we're good and we're not gonna poke the kids? I don't know. It seems like we could target kids better. Who would actually benefit from it? Just thought.
How'd the game go, guys?
We lost.
Oh. Darn it.
Okay, we're getting close to wrapping up, so some new people came in and we're talking about the Glendale right now, the 4-day and the high school, so any more comments? We have about, 10 minutes.
So this is my daughter I was telling you about.
Okay.
So what I did with this meeting, I told her, I said, you know what might be very beneficial, because she has more say and feeling towards it than I probably do too. I said, why don't you sit down with pen and paper and try and maybe try for 10 things. Pros, cons, whatever comes to mind. So she forgot she had a game today, she forgot this meeting was today, she left her paper at home. But I told her I'm gonna put her on the spot, cause I think that it'd be good for everybody to hear from one of the Glendale school attendees. So I'm gonna put her on the spot and she can tell you what she can remember best of her knowledge.
Just act like it's good.
Go up there, by that lady in red, so everybody can hear you, okay? And speak up.
Seems like a lot more people from the front.
You know what's all.
Brady, just
Yeah, it's
focus
kinda
on, focus
confusing.
on.
So I think it'd be more beneficial for the 4-day, or for us for the 4-day week, because then we have more time to spend with our family, and we have more time to go do the things we want to do, and especially for like the ranch kids. And there's a lot of them in Glendale, that they can go out more on the ranch and learn more of that side of things, and help out and do the fun things that they wanna do on the ranch. And with the, releasal time being later, we still have that amount of time, but then instead of little bits, we have that whole day on Friday that we can do stuff and spend more time with our family. And for 4-H kids, we can have more time to work with them instead of just the little bits in the morning and night. We can spend all day working with them.
With your projects.
Thank you.
Good job. Thank you. Good job.
Anybody else?
Good job.
I'll go. For those that don't know, I'm the secretary in Glendale, and I have a preschooler currently and another one on the way. And I just like to echo a bunch of all these other comments. I mean, yeah, we're there for an education, but there's more to life than school. And giving these kids a whole extra day to do sports, activities, ranch, whatever it might be, rest, it doesn't matter. I think just giving them an extra day to do them is hugely beneficial.
Comments, boards, audience, anybody, teachers?
I have a question. Maybe slightly off topic, is that okay?
Sure. We'll let you know.
Okay.
We'll hear it.
So we just got word that perhaps our preschool is at risk.
I can address that. So there was a literacy grant that helped provide funding for that position, some of that position, and we're also in the same boat over at Libby. But just saying that some funding went away didn't say that we're gonna cancel, our preschool options. So we did lose funding for a couple of those programs, but we haven't made any decisions before. We know they're valuable to Wheatland and Glendale. When I started superintendent, there wasn't a program at Glendale, we put that together, so we think it's pretty valuable, but that decision hasn't been made. I think Tom just talked about the funding source going away, that it kind of got ahead of it a little bit and said we're gonna cancel it and not have a teacher and all that. That's not the case. Okay.
Anything else?
You mind if I say one more thing, then I'll shut up?
One more thing, that's all you got.
So, just one more thing. So, funny thing was, last year, during the 5-day week, I told my kid, I said, I'll tell you, I'll make you a deal, kid. I said, if you have straight A's, no exceptions, every class, pick one day a month you don't wanna go to school, I'll let you out of school. If you're gonna be a straight A student, I'll reward you for keeping your grades up and doing this. Now, most times she'd pick days when I was moving cows or something like that, something fun. And then, same deal applied to this year. And last year, once a month, she'd say, hey Dad, how about this day? How about this day? Now this year we had the 4-day deal, and I told her, I said, same deal, kid. And I don't really remind her, cause she needs to be in school, I get it. But she hasn't come to me one time this year and said, hey Dad, can I take this day off? With the new 4-day school week. Just throwing that out there.
I think it's awesome that Wyoming kids think moving cows is fun.
All right, so with that, last call. Okay, we're gonna adjourn. There is chili back there. Anybody can help themselves, please?
Guys, if you're hungry, go back to
Consumer science class provided that for you today, and it's delicious. I've already had it.
You guys get a bowl. You guys load up.
All right, meeting starts at 6.